Hey guys, Equinox is going to be the Darkheart Thicket Mythic Plus guide. I'm going to talk about the mobs, what they do, and the bosses, what they do, and how to deal with them. So let's get right into this first pull. So this first pull, you're going to be dealing with a couple types of mobs: the Frenzied Nightclaws, the Dreadsoul Ruiners, the and the Mind Shattered Screecher, and the Festried Grizzly. Sorry about the green things on the screen; it was just a bug on PTR. So let's go over the Ruiner cast. So the Ruiner cast, they do a ability called Despair, which is you have to do chain kicks on them or just AoE CC, but they do recast on CC. Star Shower does not recast on CC, and if it goes off, just little puddles on the ground. Mind Shadow Screechers do Unnerving Screech, which is a disorient if it goes off on one person. Does not recast on CC. The Poisoner, which puts a dot that you have to dispel and it explodes when it falls off. The Frenzied Nightclaws do a jump, and this jump prioritizes range DPS. You cannot stop them on the jump. It will finish once it hits. Leaves a bleed, and it's just like Grievous at when it's below or when you heal above 90%, it goes away. It is dwarfable. And then there's the Festried Grizzly, and they do an ability called Maddening Roar, which is big AoE damage, and it leaves a stacking debuff. So the more roar Cassie does, the more damage each one does. Then he spawns these little ads that leave a trail on the ground. They fixate someone, and they just chase them down, and they leave a trail, and they melee, and that's about it. Pretty simple pull. All you gotta do is CC the Screeches and kick the Ruiners and kill the Nightclaws first. They're the most dangerous mob, and that's about it. The next pack, the only new mob is the Crazed Razorbeak. So they do an ability called Propelling Charge. Now, when Propelling Charge like goes against a wall, so say like I'm pointing against the wall, they have this like 1 to 1.5 second period where the charge will still hit while they're moving around. So this can just one-shot melee randomly. So like ideally you want to point it towards, like you want to have it have some travel time, because it has no travel time. It can just kill people. So little tricky of a mob. It's just kind of weird. Just be careful when you deal with that. That's pretty much every mob in the entire area. So everything up to the first boss is literally just all of those mobs. There's only one more pack of Razorbeaks, so you only really have to pull one of these. You mostly just want to watch about how many Nightclaws and how many Poisoners you're pulling. So Poisoners, you have to realize how many spells you have in your comp, right? So if you have 2 poison spells, you can play 2 poison spell. You can play 2 Poisoners. If you have 3, you can do 3, etc., etc. Nightclaws, it's just how much defensives do you have? Like, can your range live through multiple jumps? So that's pretty much what you have to worry about. And here's the poison gas. For healers and stuff, I would not dispel the tank ever. It doesn't do that much damage to tanks. It's pretty weak. I would definitely only dispel anyone but the tank. So healers, DPS, anything like that. You see these Nightclaws. If you have one range when you do these Frenzied Nightclaws, it will only jump on that range and it will just kill them. So I would highly recommend when you do this dungeon, bring at least 2 ranged or 0 ranged. One of the two. Don't do 1. Anything above 1 and anything below 1 is good. And so these Festried Grizzlies at the end here, you want to skip them. So the reason that is because they sync their casts, and each one gives a stack of the Maddening Roar, right? So if you have 2 of them, each cast is going to give 2. You can outrange this, and I'm pretty sure you can LOS it, so it's not the worst thing in the world, but they're just not worth it. They take so much time. They're really dangerous. Just not worth doing. You can stealth past them. There's a rescue spot. I don't have a clip of that, but you can like jump past these branches, stuff like that. Or you can just have the tank death skip it or the hunter death skip it, stuff like that. So you see the hunter's going to turtle to the left. And the boss RP just starts when you move past these. And then we're going to go on to the first boss. So this first boss is pretty simple. He only has a couple mechanics. He has the Grievous Elite mechanic, which puts a dot on the farthest person out. It doesn't matter what role they are, it's just the farthest person out. And then when it jumps back, it will do that ability again with no dot, and it's on the closest person. So if it's like, say you jump out, like here's a perfect example. I'm going to play that back for you guys. So if I'm not the closest person, it's going to kill somebody else. So I'm going to hunt here. And you see it kills our healer because I'm not the closest person. So you basically just have to make sure when he does the leap, you're always there. You're always like where he's going to jump out or jump back. And just like the Fester High Grizzlies, he summons these two little ads. They just leave a trail. Same thing. You just have to kill them. Ideally, people are stacked, so it spawns the ads stacked. And the last mechanic is his frontal right there, Primal Rampage. So the way you deal with this mechanic is when he does Primal Rampage, you always want to tank him against a wall or a rock. The reason being is if you tank him against a wall or a rock, the second part of his frontal does 0 damage, which is the charge. The charge thing does 0 damage. It'll only be the knockback. But if you don't, if he like gains any distance, the frontal will do damage, and it does a crap ton of damage. It got buffed so hard. So really important that you tank him against the wall. It will just cancel the frontal straight out. And yeah, just makes it really easy. Whenever you have these ads, ideally you have like something that can move the ads together, and that's why I'm mentioning stacking. It's really important because if they spawn together, you can keep them CC'd, keep them slowed, and they will just die naturally together, and it saves a lot of space. And that's pretty much it for this boss. Super simple. If your one person cannot take another leap, remember it's just the farthest. So whoever the farthest person is will take the leap. It could be a melee, it could be someone with an immune, anyone you want. So next area, you're gonna have 3 types of mobs. You're gonna have the Darkheart Dryad, the Vilethorn Blossom, and the Darkheart Keeper. So the most important 2 mobs here are the Keepers and the Dryads. The Dryads are basically random damage spears, and they have a random poison spear. The poison spear can be a spell, but the throw spear is just it just throws it at people, does a crap ton of damage really hard. The Darkheart Keeper, this mob has a buff called Corrupted Infusion, and it heals any plant mob around it. This is not the Dryad, it's just the Blossom. So if you pull these, it will heal the Blossom. So like, AoEing is kind of pointless unless you have like 2 Keepers and a Dryad, then you want AoE anyway, because that's how you're trying to kill 3 mobs. Also on the Dryad, when it's at 50%, it will run away. If you like stun it or something right as it starts running, it won't try to run again. So whenever she's at 50%, just get ready to CC here. You can Vortex, Binding Shot, Sigil of Chains, whatever you want. The other ability that the Keeper does is he spawns mushrooms, and these mushrooms, if you step on them, will explode and you die. They do a crap ton of damage. They're straight up one-shots. The best way to deal with this is kind of like stack, basically. You can kind of just stack and bait where they go. The other ability, last one, is the Vilethorn Blossoms. They do an ability called Root Burst, which is just a ground circle that you dodge. Now, these are CCable, and it will not recast, but the animation does not go away when you stun it. So it'll kind of fake you out. So see here, the animation doesn't go away, but all of them got canceled. And here's the mushrooms baited on players, and you just move away. Super simple. I would highly recommend basically killing the Dryad and then chaining. Like, you just basically want to be fighting stuff. Like, these blossoms don't do anything, so you just want to be like killing the Keepers, or killing the Dryad, then the Keepers, then moving on to the next pack. And keeping the blossoms, around. They don't do anything. So I would highly recommend just like basically the first 2 packs you saw, you kill the Dryad, move on to the Keeper Dryad pack, kill the Dryad and Keeper, move on to the next pack, etc., etc. You can just keep doing that because again, the blossoms don't do anything. You should care about the Keepers and the Dryads. The Keepers, once they're dead, they no longer spawn the mushrooms, but the mushrooms they left are active, so they will kill you. And that's it for that area. So the next area, while we're fighting this pack, is the Nightmare Dwellers. They do an ability called Tormented Eye, and it's a channel that does damage on players. It's interruptible and CCable. And if the channel goes off, it does a chunk of damage and fears the person. So basically how you deal with this is you want to pull them as quickly together as possible. You don't want to pull one and then pull another one 3 seconds later because it'll desync their cast, right? So you basically want to pull all of them together as quickly as possible and then group them up and use AoE CC to stop as many casts at one time as possible. Because if you're just CCing when only one cast is out, then the other ones are just going to recast immediately after. You're going to DR your CC too fast. And yeah, DH is really, you see like here, like the grouping's really nice, so it won't be too hard. Then they all cast at the same time and you CC. That's it. They are immune to fear, so watch out for that. So DH, Sigil of Fear does not work. Priest Fear doesn't work. Grip, stuns, disorients all work. Silences work. Yeah, so stuff like that. So you see, like, super easy to deal with if you pull them together. If you don't pull them together, then they're just going to be chain casting a different kind, or like casting one after the other, and it's just a mess. While we're doing this, the next boss, Oakheart, this is probably the hardest boss in here besides the last boss. So this boss has a couple mechanics. His main tank mechanics are Nightmare Breath and Crushing Grip. Nightmare Breath is a frontal. It does a big chunk of damage and then leaves a... I don't think it leaves a dot on the tank. I think it might leave a dot on the tank. I don't remember, but you'll see. It just does huge initial damage, and you basically want to have like a small defensive up for each one of these, and then the Crushing Grip is where you want to have your big defensive as a tank. So he picks you up and does this ticking magic damage, and he does pretty much every 25-30 seconds he'll do it, and you'll basically just want a big defensive for that. So Brewmaster, you want like Diffuse, Zen Med, stuff like that. And then he'll do these little puddles, and it's called Strangling Roots, so you can jump in these and remove it with either Shape-Shifting, Tiger's Lust, Hand of Freedom, anything that removes roots. And that will allow the ads not to spawn. A really easy way to cheese this is just what we did there. So you see how we all stacked up, and all three of these spawned at the same point. And you basically have like a druid or anyone with a freedom walk in, soak all three, and then remove them, and then all three of them are gone. And if you do not successfully get rid of these, then they will spawn a little ad. The ad doesn't do anything, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And then he does Shattered Earth, and as you saw right there, the ability is terrifying. It's very terrifying ability. It does a crap ton of damage. Basically, you want to have like a personal or a party defensive for every single Shattered Stomp. And yeah, that's literally the whole fight. You just rinse and repeat that. I would highly recommend lusting this boss. So your lust should be the first pull, or yeah, about the first pull, maybe on Tyrant first boss, and then this boss for sure, and then last boss. Last boss you'll definitely have to lust, especially with the new pacing in his final phase. So yeah. Gonna fast forward through this boss to get to the end, and then I'll talk about the next area of trash. So this next area of trash is pretty much just kill the blobs, defensive, and then go on. So there's two different mobs. There's the Hate Spawn Slimes, and then there's the Bloodstained Fury. The Hate Spawn Slimes, they just do big AoE damage when they die. It's about 2 seconds after they die. So basically you want to have... you kill them all at the same time, then have big defensives going. Doing 2 packs of these and without immune is kind of hard because they will just kill you through small DRs. So anything that's like 30, 20%, it'll just straight up kill you through it unless it's like a Tyrant key or like a low key. But yeah. You'll see here. You'll see how much damage it does. Also, these little eggs, little spawn dragons, they don't do anything. They just do tank damage, so you can pull them if you have like funnel classes like sub-rogues. Enhanced Shaman, stuff like that. And you're going to see the big AoE damage here. They're going to die, and then a couple seconds afterwards, you're going to do big damage. And here it is. Boom. And this Bloodstained Fury does 2 abilities. They do Blood Bombs, which is just a circle on the ground that you have to dodge. It's kind of hard to see in the water, so I would highly recommend tanking it on land. And then he does Blood Assault, which is just a charge. It works the same way as the first boss, where you put him into the wall. He just won't move anywhere. And then when the Bloodstained Fury dies, he will summon 4 ads, and you can just walk away from them. They don't do anything. If you run away fast enough, then you won't get in combat. So you're going to see here. So I'm stupid here. So I didn't know about this when this happened, but they will cast like that when you, even if you successfully do the skip. but you won't get in combat with them. So if you see this, don't freak out like I did. They'll just, they'll just be fine. And then if you are fighting this, they just do blood bolts, and then they do a thing called blood metamorphosis, and that needs to be CC'd. It does not recast on CC. It will turn them into a bloodstained fury again. So yeah, not fun to deal with. And then there's the now. See, I'm pulling the rest of this. I don't recommend doing this unless you just want to kill your friends in game. So, but it's pretty fun. It's kind of fun doing this. See how strong your defensives really are. If you do this, just stagger kill them. But you see like Barrier and Zephyr, and we barely live. Like we had to like Zephyr, Scales, Bark Skin, and Barrier. Like it's so much damage, but you can live it. This next boss is called Dresseron, and he has all these eggs around the room. So again, if you have funnel classes, you can just pull them. He has 3 abilities. He has Downdraft, which is a constant pushback. The way you just deal with this is be under his hitbox. If you're a melee, it's pretty easy to deal with. If you're ranged, you're kind of just fighting against it. Basically, just don't get pushed into more ads, or they'll melee you to death because the tank probably won't be in range. He does an ability called Breath of Corruption, and this is a frontal, same with Nightmare Breath, and it gives you a stacking dot for every tick. You just move out of it. It doesn't follow you, so here's the breath. You just move out of it. And you can pull, like I said, you can pull these ads. It's really good for funnel. So, but if you have no funnel classes, or if you just want to pad and have fun, go ahead and pull them. Here's the Downdrive. You see, like I'm in melee range. It doesn't push you back like any. It's really, really nice. And then he does Earthshaking Roar, which is the same thing as Shattered Stomp. It does a huge burst of damage right here. And except here, it leaves a puddle on the ground. And that puddle now lasts 90 seconds, so it's going to fill up the room. So you kind of want to bait it next to the old stuff to at least every 3 you want kind of close to each other. And here's the Downdraft again. And that's it. That's the whole fight. And he usually follows the spell queuing after the first one. It's a Downdraft, then Roar, then Breath. It usually follows that exact pattern every single time, so it's very easily replicatable. And that's it. That's the whole boss. So the next area of trash has a couple types of mobs. It has the Dreadfire Imps. They do 2 casts, Dread Inferno and Firebolt. Dread Inferno does not recast on CC. Firebolt does. Dread Inferno, when it goes off, it puts a circle under someone's feet, and it does big damage once that finishes. And Firebolt's just single target damage. Then there's the Taintheart Summoner. Again, 2 casts. Curse of Isolation does not recast on CC, and just, Curse of Tongue slows people and has a dot component to it. And the Shadow Bolt, which is just targeted damage. And then there's the Taintheart Stalker. So the Stalker, this mob is absolutely insane. If you remember Brackenhide first boss, it's basically Gash Frenzy without the bleed. It just bounces to people, and it can just straight up one-shot on fort. Highly recommend skipping these mobs if you can. If you can, like, Invis Pot or whatever past everything here, highly recommend. It's super dangerous trash. And then the other mobs are Tormented Bloodseekers. So the Tormented Bloodseekers do this thing called Dark Soul Bite, and this is parryable, dodgeable, so any class with really high parry, really high dodge, Brewmaster DH has a really easy time dealing with these. You can also like pre-AMS it, that should work. And basically it leaves a dot on you, and it's called Dark Soul Drain, and it's a disease. If you do not dispel this, and you don't have like a big defensive rolling, it'll just one-shot you. It does like 600k a tick per one. So if you have like 3 dots, you just die. So insane curse or disease. Really horrible mobs. Again, you should probably skip them. And then there's one more pack right before the last boss. And it has all those mobs, and it also has a Deadeye. And the Deadeye does a little magic shot, and it summons a decoy. And the decoy is basically the fake version. You have to, doesn't really do much. But yeah, you'll see all this trash. You see I try to I have to get this for percent, and you can see here, I'll pull back. You see the dot. You see this dot? I'm like in meta, and it's just absolutely trucking me. I have Fiery Brand and everything going, and it's absolutely insane. And you see I try to snap these down. These don't snap down. And I'm just dead. So don't do what I do. I was kind of just griefing, but yeah, they don't snap down. They're just annoying. They just stay up there. Maybe if you if you were the only person in combat, it might snap down. But yeah, you're gonna basically see how the trash works. So if you don't have like a VDH or like a prop paladin, I would just pull this pack like one at a time. These packs, like kill the imps, then chain it in, because it's just too many casts, right? Like it's just way too many casts. And you can see all these casts. Dread Inferno again does not recast on CC, which you'll see a few times. Curse of Isolation again does not recast on CC. If you have a DH or prop paladin, this stuff is pretty easy. It doesn't really do much. Or a boomy, if you have like a DK boomy, like it's pretty easy too with beam. And yeah, that's a whole pack. And then like you said, like you saw the bats, like they're absolutely insane mobs. And you see I'm gonna pull it with the last pack. Not the smartest decision in the world. And there's the decoy. You see he kind of like steps away when he pops his decoy, and then you just hit him and he walks back in. And this pack is really dangerous if you don't have a lot of AoE CC, because they just spam cast. And if the cast hits when the stalker jumps, like you just saw there, it brought our hunter to like 10%. And again, this isn't fort. Like if this was 40, you would just be dead. Like the mob is absolutely overtuned. And you can see how insanely like potent this dot is. At least you do a lot of self healing when it does damage to you. And then I'm stupid right there. I walk back in. All I had to do was kite, but I just walk back in and die. So yeah, you can see how strong these mobs are. They're in need for a sizable nerf. All right, so this last boss is fairly simple for the first 1 to 50% or 100 to 50%. He does a random thing called Festering Rip, and does a dot and a decreased healing taken by 15%. And it's just a dispel. Healer has to spell it. He does an ability called Nightmare Bolt, which it just does big damage and leaves a debuff on you called Waking Nightmare, and it has like a circle around you, and it basically, if you aren't standing next to somebody, you're silenced and you can't press any buttons. There's Feed on the Weak, which is a channel that does big damage, and you can feign death that, cloak it, vanish it, shadow meld it, cancel it. And then there's Induced Paranoia, which basically puts a puddle under your feet that grows, and if anybody touches that, you're feared, and it's not dispellable, so you're just sitting the fear. So basically, you just want to walk away with somebody. There's Feed the Weak. You see how much damage it does if you don't have a way to stop it. And then at 50%, he does a big ability, a big like raid nuke, and use defense of it. It's similar to like first boss Black or Cold. It just does a big AoE damage. You have to defensive it. And then after that, everything speeds up. There's puddles on the ground. You have to dodge. You probably won't see here because it's a little bit older, but the newer version is there's much more puddles. He gets the stacking buff called Apocalyptic Nightmare, and he just does more damage. It's basically a race to kill him. And yeah, that's the whole fight. Pretty simple. You're going to see the 50% phase, and then I'll show you to 50 to 0. I would highly recommend 2-minuting on pull, and then lusting below 50 whenever you have cooldowns back. For Nightmare Bolt, you can also shadow meld it, so that's actually pretty helpful. You can also pre-immune it with like Turtle, stuff like that. Here's Apocalyptic Nightmare. Big damage. Boom. You see, like even with Barrier, does a crap ton of damage, like absolutely insane. So it's going to be like a one-shot mechanic. And you're going to see these puddles around the room. So these puddles, again, like the version you guys will do, these puddles come out much faster, about like 5 times the speed, and they can spawn like around players' feet, and it's just basically like amped up to 100. And you can see the shadow meld there, fully cancels the Feed the Weak. You're going to see the Paranoia. You can also shadow meld that if you just don't want to get the fear for whatever reason. There's the Nightmare Bolt. So this is the overlap that can happen sometimes. I assume they'll have it fixed, but the Paranoia and the Bolt can target the same person, so you just have to basically trigger their fear and hope they don't run into a puddle and die. So you see like a trigger and he's walking straight into the puddle, but he misses it narrowly. And yeah, it's kind of annoying. And that's pretty much the whole fight. You just rinse, repeat that until the boss dies, and hopefully you kill it before you get overwhelmed. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to have the last guide up soon. Hope you have a good one, and have the Brew and VDH guides linked below. And have a good one. Peace out, everybody.